Okay, so this is Maria Tabane, and today I'm doing the consonants of Australian English. So there's three main things we need to describe consonants. The first one is place, and we're going to go through these, don't worry. So place, we arrange things as columns and rows, and place is written in the rows. And we also have to worry about something called manner. So I've written that on the side. I hope you can see that. So we're going to go through all these manners of articulation. It'll take a while. And the third thing we need to worry about with consonants is something called voicing. So we'll do place, manner and voicing, and we're going to go through all of these. So I guess let's go. We'll be applying the principles of the International Phonetic Alphabet, the IPA, for how this is laid out. Okay, so it's not perfect, but we'll just work with it as it is. Okay, so let's start with, there are three main places of articulation when it comes to the world's languages, so I'll just underline those. They're bilabial, alveolar, and velar. Okay, so let's start with those. Oh, I hope that's showing up. Doesn't really seem to be registering quite so well. Okay, so the bilabial place of articulation. So in English, these would be the sounds p and b. Okay, so let's just start with, and we say that they are stops, oral stops. So what does this mean? This means that we put our lips together, a pa, a ba, and we stop the airflow. So as you can just, if you do it yourself, just go up, and the air's not escaping. It's not escaping through your mouth, the oral cavity, and it's not escaping through your nose either. Okay, so we'll worry about the difference between p and b a bit later on. So let's just put those there. So just check that they're both the same. A ba, they're both completely stopping the air. Okay, so complete closure in the oral cavity, we say. All right, so the next stop place of articulation, the next place of articulation, next lot of consonants is t and d. Okay, so these are called alveolar consonants. And to appreciate what the alveolar ridge is, I'm just going to draw this maybe down here. Okay, so if this is a little tooth, this is your tooth, front tooth, and then if you just get your tongue tip and pull it back along the roof of your mouth, at a certain point, it should go upwards like that. Okay, so most of you, if you just take your tongue tip from the teeth and curl it backwards along the roof of the mouth, most of you will feel a distinct sort of kink where the palate seems to move upwards. Okay, and so this little bit here is the alveolar ridge. Okay. All right, now some of you, typically in a class, if I was doing this live, typically about 1 out of 20 people in the class will say that they don't feel this distinct kink. Okay, so that's fine. You might have a more gradual rise, that's fine. But the alveolar ridge is the little bit right behind the teeth, okay? So that's alveolar. And so if you say t, d, you should feel that your tongue tip is hitting that alveolar ridge, a-ta, a-da. And you should also, feel that, again, the air is stopped. There is complete closure in the oral cavity. Up, air can't escape. Ad, air can't escape. Okay. Again, we'll separate out the differences between t and d. For now, they're just both alveolar stops. Okay. Place alveolar, manner, stop. All right. And then, as I said, the third main place of articulation is velar. And so here, velar Okay, if we kept going back along the roof of our mouth, and at a certain point you should feel that it stops feeling bony and it starts feeling very soft along the roof of the mouth. Okay, starts feeling soft. And that point where it starts feeling soft is probably where, well it is, where your teeth end. If you have your wisdom teeth out, they're your third molars, that should be where the bony bit stops, okay? Now the bit behind where the bony bit stops is the velar region, okay? It's actually named velar because it comes from the Latin word for sail, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if you can't see this, do get yourself a mirror and try. You can actually, it acts like a sail at the back of the mouth, that soft palate. So that's the soft palate. The velum, alveolar ridge, actually I should just fix that up and write velum for velar. So velar is how we describe the place of articulation, but the actual soft palate is called the velum. That's the soft palate. Okay. So, so that's the velum, and the sounds that are made at the velum are k and g. So a ka, the air is stopped. A ga, the air is stopped again. Okay. Now, what's really important when you're writing in the International Phonetic Alphabet, the velar stop here, g, needs to be written as a proper cursive letter. Okay, you can't write it like this, the printed, computer printed version. That's not allowed. That's just FYI. Okay, so that's according to the strict International Phonetic Alphabet. Okay, so these are velar stops. Okay, and yeah. That's, and the velum ends in the little dangly bit at the bottom. The velum ends in something called the uvula, which we don't need to worry about in English, but they do in languages such as French. So it's the dangly, grapey bit at the bottom. Apologies if you get too graphic a view of my oral cavity there. So the velum ends in that little uvula. All right, but we won't be going that far in English. Okay, so that was the oral stops. So the air is actually stopped in the oral cavity. Okay. So next we have the nasal consonants. All right. Nasals are also stops. So you know, I could probably write nasal stop in brackets here. That wouldn't be entirely wrong. Okay. So the air is stopped in the oral cavity, but the soft palate lowers to allow nasal airflow. Okay, so whereas before we had the soft palate acting as a passive place of articulation for the tongue body going up, okay, a ka, a ga, just feel that. For nasal sounds, this soft palate actually lowers. And that's what I was trying to do before when I was trying to show you the flap. The flapping was me trying to raise and lower my soft palate. So, I'm sorry, I really can't see if that's coming through on the video. Okay, so, so when you lower that soft palate, so this is the soft part of the back of the tongue, it actually allows the air to flow through your nasal cavity. Okay, and so the nasal consonants in English and in many languages of the world are, oopsie daisy, m, and, sorry, I meant to do these in green before. Okay, and n, and ng. So we write ng as a, it looks like an N and a G combined. Okay, so that's the sound ng. Okay, so let's just work through this. You can all see p, b, m. They both involve closure at the lips. Okay. P, b, well, they all involve closure at the lips. The difference with m is that you can sustain a m. You can go and if you just put your hand above your lip, below your nose, you'll feel nice, gentle, warm air coming out through your nose. And that's really the characteristic of nasal stops, nasal consonants. Okay, the air is stopped in the oral cavity, but it's allowed to flow through. Whereas if you kept it here and tried to do p, b, there's nothing coming through the nose, no nice warm air. So the same thing with t, d, n. So let's just feel the tongue tip, t, d, n. You should feel that they're all involving the tip of the tongue up against the alveolar ridge. Okay, but the difference is for n, try it, okay, it's just nice warm air coming out through the nose, okay. So that's the alveolar nasal, okay. I'll just rub out stop because I might end up calling it a stop because, yeah. But it is a stop, but I just don't want to confuse myself. All right, okay, and so finally we have the velar nasal, okay? So if you just feel, you go k, g, ng. Now, this is not a sound that, some of you might not be able to say this sound at the beginning of a word, because in English, this particular sound only occurs in what we call syllable final position, or we could say it at the ends of words. So it'll occur in a word like sing a song, okay? So sing. So, you know, or sung, okay? Ung, okay? So, anyway, but if you say k, g, ng, you should feel that they all involve the back of the tongue up against the soft palate, okay, in this soft palate region. So, as I said, it's the back of the tongue that's producing these sounds, and you may recall from the vowels lesson that we used k, we could have used g or ng, it doesn't really matter, to test whether a vowel was more front or back. Okay, so vowels are produced with the back of the tongue, okay, and velar consonants are produced with the back of the tongue, so they have that in common. Okay, the tongue tip, which produces alveolar consonants, isn't really involved in vowel production in English or in most languages of the world. Okay, so yeah, that's the nasal consonants. Oh, again, sorry, k, g, ng, nice warm air coming out from the nose. And that's because we are able to lower our soft palate. And this is hard to believe because you can't really feel it. You can't feel this happening. But what happens is the soft palate is normally raised and it blocks off any air that might want to flow through the nasal cavity. It's sealed. So it seals off the passage, okay? And then to produce a nasal consonant, it lowers. And it's like a port opening, okay, or like a door opening, if you like. And that allows the air to flow through the nasal cavity, even though it's blocked off in the oral cavity, okay. All right, so next we need to, I'll just rub out these. So basically these p, b, t, d, k, g, m, n, they're similar to the sounds that, you know, you see written in English. So there's nothing really, you know, I won't do anything. You know, p occurs in a word like pin, for instance, okay, or m in a word like mum. Okay, so they're not really that unusual in terms of the symbols that are used. All right, so next we're going to have to deal with a few different symbols, and we're going to deal with a class of sounds called fricatives. Okay, so fricatives are a little bit different. So whereas for, sorry about this, I just want to use my hands, so I've just got to close that. Okay, so whereas for stops, we said that the air was completely sealed off in the oral cavity and couldn't escape. What happens with fricatives, this is my roof of my mouth there, and this is my tongue tip here, all right, and this is my tongue back, all right, tongue tip, tongue back. So what happens with fricatives? Instead of a complete closure, a complete seal, there's this tiny passage, a tiny critical passage, and that little constriction allows air to flow through, but because it's so constricted, the air becomes turbulent and the sound becomes noisy. So, what are the fricative sounds of English? Well, let's see. In the labiodental column, we have a sounds called f, v. So labio meaning lip, dental meaning teeth. So the lower lip comes to the upper teeth. F, v. Okay. F, v. So that's those sounds. And you can really hear that noise. It's quite a noisy sound. Okay. All right. And then in English, we also have dental fricatives. Now, these are quite unusual sounds, but they are written like this. This is th, and this is the. Okay. So the Greek letter theta and the Greek letter delta. So th, what happens is the front part, the tongue tip or tongue blade, the first centimetre or two of the tongue gets protruded between the lips. Tha. Okay. Thi, the, tha, tho, thu. So that's in a word like thin. Okay. Oh dear, sorry, they're meant to be the same height. I don't know why I did that like that. That's no good. Oh gosh, I've really botched that up. Hang on. Oops, daisy. Thin. Okay. And yeah, I'll come back to some of those differences in a tick for the. All right. Or maybe we'll do it now. We might as well. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. I'll just leave off the and the for now. The next place of articulation we have is s and z. Okay. So this is considered an alveolar sound. Now, it might be a little bit tricky for you to believe that this is alveolar. So let's just work with s for now. I'll talk about z in a tick. I want you to say s and then stop saying it, hold the tongue position and breathe in. And hopefully, if you've held that tongue position and breathed in, you should feel that there's a very narrow groove along the tongue, really narrow. And you should feel cool air along that narrow groove. And you should also feel cool air at that alveolar ridge, okay? All right, so that's the good way to test if this is, you know, the place of articulation of fricatives, okay? If you did the same thing with th, you go breathing in. You should feel that, you know, that the cool air is a little bit more forward. It's also a much wider part of the tongue. Okay. Righto, and then I'll just rub this out. And then we have a post-alveolar fricative. We have post-alveolar fricatives in English, and they are written like this: sh and j. Okay, what does post-alveolar mean? It literally means just behind alveolar. Let me maybe get a different colour here, if I can maybe just draw it. So post-alveolar would be only just, oh, my colours aren't really different, are they? How about if I try pink? Let's try pink. Oh, that's, I don't think it's quite showing up, is it? Sorry about that. Okay. But anyway, so post-alveolar, I won't write anything at all. Post-alveolar is just behind that alveolar ridge, right at that little sort of where it's starting to kink, if you have a kink. Okay, so that's post-alveolar, just behind. So how do we test? Again, we say shh. And if you breathe in, you should feel that the air is a bit more along here, okay, along this sort of where it's rising into the hard palate. Okay, so yeah, that's the post-alveolar fricative of English. And notice that it's written as this long S, like the integral sign from maths. So it's written SH normally in English, okay? So in a word like shin, okay, the shin on my leg would be something like that, okay? Or shoe, I'm wearing a shoe, okay? So yeah, they're the, yeah, that's the sh sound. Okay, so, so now, that end's not looking very good. I was wondering what that was. Let's do a proper end there. Okay, so now let's, we have to deal with the consonants that we've been ignoring, okay? And this is where this voicing comes in, okay, voicing down here. I've run out of space again. All right. All right. I want to start with the fricatives because it's a lot easier to appreciate what voicing is with fricatives than it is with stops, which is what we're going to have to do next. Okay, so if you say, oh, let's work with S, it's an easier one. And then if you go zzz, all right, let's do a couple of things. So let's go s, and then let's go zzz. Have your fingers here. Zzz. So you should feel that for zzz, there's some movement here of the vocal folds. So the vocal folds are in the larynx, and so they're actually vibrating, all right? Whereas for s, nothing is happening down here. Pause the recording if you need to and do a test yourself, okay? So nothing is happening down here. Sorry, for s. So what we say is that s is voiceless and z is voiced. So I think I might just have to write a bit. I'll try and do it down here. So voicing, I'll have to write this here. So voiceless, the way we write it on the International Phonetic Alphabet chart, voiceless on the left, voiced on the right, okay? On right, okay. So we always write the voiceless on the left, s, and the voiced on the right, z. Another test you can do for voicing, which might be more effective for you, is to cover your ears and go s, z. And that's usually pretty obvious, okay? The voiceless one, s, you won't feel much, and z, z. The voiced one, it'll be like a buzzing in your head, okay? So that's another really good test. All right. Sometimes people find it hard to believe that there's a whole lot of sounds that are voiceless. And, you know, fair enough. These are sounds that don't involve any vibration of the vocal folds. So it is just how it is. The noise is being produced here in this instance, okay? Okay. So, you know, let's just go through and check for each of these. Voiceless, voiced. And you might even feel a bit of buzzing on the lips for that one. Okay, and then this one. And then this one. That's good, that's voiced. So you probably are wondering, these are both written as TH in English here, okay? All right. The difference between them, so I wrote the word thin before. This sound turns up in a lot of our function words in English. This, there, that, okay? So this, there, this, there, that, for instance, okay? So it turns up on a lot of function words, not necessarily just function words. So you can have you might have a contrast between a word like ether, which is a gas, apparently. I don't know much about gases or anything. Ether and either, as in either or. Okay, this is something called a minimal pair, which we'll do in a couple of lessons. Okay, but ether, either. Okay, so yeah, just be aware of those. It's something that you get better at with practice. Okay, and then we've also got, sorry, just rubbing out there. We've also got sh and je, okay? So, oops, I better rub out this as well. So je, okay, so sh is written as sh, as we saw before with shin and shu. Je is often written zh, as in Zhivago, as in Dr. Zhivago. Maybe some of you don't know that book, but anyway, Zhivago, there it is. But it can also turn up in the middle of a word where it's not obvious from the spelling, like fusion, nuclear fusion. So fusion, and there's our unstressed syllable. Maybe I'll put the stress mark there. Fusion, to remind us that the schwa is in the unstressed syllable. Okay, so it's the je sound. Again, sound it out, throw the spelling rules out the window. They're not going to help you with this. Yeah, we'll just practice it and you'll get better, okay? So I'm going to have to pause the recording here, and we'll come back and continue the voicing, question of voicing, for the oral stops, okay? So.